wrestling, gumbo to grits, politics to poetry, and all things Southern in between, this is Take on the South. Produced by the Institute for Southern Studies in the McCausland College of Arts and Sciences at the University of South Carolina, Take on the South explores the highs and lows of the American South, examines the truth and fictions of the country's most distinctive region, and picks the brains of some of its most accomplished students. To understand the South, you need to take it on, and that's what we'll be doing. Join us as we take on the South. Today we delve into a topic close to everyone's heart and certainly worthy of everyone's minds, namely the state of education in South Carolina. How might we best characterize it? How does it compare to other states? What are the main promises and perhaps more importantly, the main challenges facing our K-12 system of education? Certainly the well-known shortage of teachers is one challenge, but what are the others? And why this shortage in the first place? What can we do to improve, and how? To help answer these questions and to introduce himself as the new interim dean of the McCausland College of Arts and Sciences, we are fortunate to have on the show Dr. Thomas Hodges, who has taken leave from serving as dean of the College of Education at the University of South Carolina to help us in the College of Arts and Sciences. Dean Hodges, welcome to Take on the South.
Thank you for having me.
A real pleasure. I wanted you on for two reasons, as I say. The first is to introduce you to the faculty and the staff and the students of the McCausland College of Arts and Sciences. But just as important, I'm really interested in your work. This is foundationally important work, and I think that people need to hear more about education, K through 12, in this state. And I thought this was a great opportunity to marry the two. But before we get into this stuff, could you just tell us a bit about your background? Where are you from? Where did you do your undergraduate and graduate work? Are you a Southerner? Are you a Northerner?
Well, I've heard your discussion with Chairman Westbrook about what constitutes a Southerner, and it's complex, but I would say I certainly identify as one. I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, went up through high school there, and then struggled like many high school students do with trying to think about what my next steps would be and where I would go to school. I had the opportunity to stay close to home and play baseball at Belmont University. Thought it would be great because my family would still get to see me play and we could be close by. So I went and did my undergraduate there.
Okay.
Started out as a pre-med major, not really knowing exactly what I wanted to get into. But we had to take a calculus sequence while I was there. And the professor would come in every day and say, I cannot believe I get paid to work with you all. I cannot believe they pay me. And I thought, whatever 19-year-old version of myself, was really keen as to where I was going to land. I thought, she loves what she's doing. I want to do what she's doing. And so I immediately changed my major to mathematics, decided that I wanted to teach. I had a coach in my life. My high school baseball coach was a guy by the name of George Weicker. He had gone to Davidson College in North Carolina, had played football and baseball there. I think he led the nation in tackles his senior year and led the nation in home runs his senior year. So a great athlete. Wow. He went on and played up through AAA baseball, went back and got a master's degree from Johns Hopkins. And he was this mix of an academic, he was an intellectual, but also an athlete. And he was somebody that I was so intrigued by. And I wanted to be him, so I decided I was going to teach math. Went back and taught high school math. Didn't think I was very good at it, so I wanted to go back and get a master's degree. Did that at the University of Tennessee, and through that I realized, no, I wasn't very good at it. There was even more to it that I didn't know. Right. And so I hung around for the doctoral degree and was able to work on a National Science Foundation grant that supported rural mathematics teachers in Appalachia. And then started my career at Western Carolina University on the other side of the mountains. Right. And then found my way to UofSC in 2012. So math, the educator workforce have always been something that's really important to me. And quite frankly, I wanted to prepare teachers better than I felt like I was prepared as I entered the workforce. And so that was a passion of mine. And then as I moved through various positions, and my interest sort of evolved over time too.
How long did you teach high school for?
Not too long, so 4 or 5 years.
That sounds like a long time
Well,
to me.
yeah, it can feel like that from
Sure
time
it
to
can.
time. But no, I mean, I had no intention of ever leaving the classroom. So when I went back to go and get my graduate degrees, I had every intention of going back. It was simply me just wanting to learn more. I wanted to know more about how to be a good teacher.
Yeah.
And I learned that, and then I kind of learned, well, maybe I can have a scalable impact in this profession by not only working with kids directly, but also working with the people that are going to work with them. And so for me, it was really about trying to support beginning teachers, novice teachers, pre-service teachers who are entering the profession so that they can support kids well. And it's that scaled impact that you can have that's really been important to me in my professional life.
Do you think that was an important experience for you to teach high school and becoming, as you look back as Dean of the College of Education, you think, yeah, that was foundational for me in a way, or is it just incidental?
No, well, there's a credibility factor.
Okay.
Right. So one would say, like, how can you possibly speak to what it's like to teach or prepare one to teach having not been in that profession yourself? So I think it's probably a foundational element for much of the College of Education. It's not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily universal, given the varied degrees and pathways that it has. But I would certainly say in the teacher education space, the vast majority of individuals need that grounding, need that experience, and it's that experience that certainly shapes who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's imagine that you have a visitor from the UK or anywhere else, really. My biases show, and
We've had one recently.
Well, yeah, there's a couple, and they've just come here, and they're Dean Hodges, can you give us a kind of overview of the state of education, K through 12, in South Carolina? How would you characterize it for me?
So there's been a lot of discussion around, and you mentioned this in the opening, around teacher shortage issues, and those are present in South Carolina. But if we walk back a little bit, and a lot of the ESSER funding that resulted from COVID, the federal infusion of resources into states to support recovery of educational attainment. A lot of those dollars were spent on creating positions inside K-12 school systems.
Okay.
And when they did that, many of them cannibalized their own teaching population to fill those positions, and then thus there were vacancies that trailed. So the narrative that has existed over the last few years is that there's this enormous teacher shortage. Well, about a year and a half ago, those funds ran out.
Yep.
And suddenly, that teacher shortage sort of vanquished. So what we have been in the business of working on inside the College of Education is not so much focusing on positions, the creation or removal of FTEs, but what do the actual people do? Do they stay in the profession? Do they move within it? How transient is the teacher population from one district to another?
Yeah.
What are the reasons that undergird those departures? What are the reasons that undergird leaving the profession altogether? And there are differences and nuances, and there are differences and nuances by region, which makes tackling at a state level more of a challenge because a lot of the workforce issues are regional.
When you say regional, do you mean within the state of South Carolina?
So the Low Country has perhaps different sets of issues than the PD, than the Midlands, than the Upstate. So these different geographic regions across the state have sort of idiosyncrasies that drive the educator workforce that need different kinds of responses. And so what we've tried to do is to recognize that South Carolina is not monolithic, that it is in fact nuanced, and that our strategies for addressing that need to be much more surgical.
Yep.
And I think that is about being good stewards of the resources that the state has, being good stewards of the resources that come into the College of Education to make sure that we're tackling the problem not as if there's a singular issue, but that there's a local issue that helps drive that, and we work with those local regions to address it, but use the data that we've developed to be able to do that.
Give me a sense of range within the state of South Carolina. You identified the Low Country, the PD, the Midlands, the Upstate. You know, I mean, I understand that there's a range, but how great is the range, I suppose, in terms of educational success, K through 12?
Yeah, so it's even that would even be more nuanced than even a particular geographic region or even a district in many ways. So that's going to be hyper localized. So that's going to be driven by the zoning restrictions around school. So you're going to see uneven mixes of student achievement that has a multitude of in and out of school factors that help drive it. So, and the workforce is that way too. So when we work with districts, we ask them, you know, where are the places that you're struggling with teacher retention the most? Those are the places that we need to be. And so we'll go into the schools that they identify as needing the most support that maybe have the lowest student achievement and help address those. So it's kind of like the all politics is local, all student achievement is local too.
I think it's a very healthy way to look at this, isn't it? Because the tendency is to say South Carolina, but you're saying it's not monolithic. But if somebody were to say, all right, can you step back and give me the aerial, the Southwest, New England, kind of middle, which section of the United States is most successful in educating their K through 12 students, and which is the least?
Yes, many of the northeastern states historically have had high levels of student achievement. Some Midwestern states sort of stand out as well. The Southeast, in some ways, has lagged, but I will say, you know, there's been some reading reform efforts that have gone, that have been a national effort, but have really, we've seen the fruition of those in the Southeast in particular. And if you look at South Carolina, so the post-COVID dip in student achievement scores that impacted much of the United States, we didn't see that in South Carolina.
Oh, really?
So it really depends on whether or not we're looking historically, in which South Carolina has been somewhat of a lagger in K-12 achievement, or if we look more contemporarily, it maybe tells a little bit of a different story.
Well, do you know why we didn't have that dip here?
I think it has to do with the fact that we returned back to face-to-face, in-person instruction a little quicker than some other parts of the country did. And I think in doing so, we returned back to things that we know dramatically impact student achievement, which is the relationship with the adult in the classroom. You know, understanding the kids well, having a strong relationship with them, understanding the nuances around the misconceptions that they hold or the prerequisite knowledge that they may be lacking. So I think it's those sorts of things that in-person instruction will always win the day. A lot of interest around AI today. But I think nothing replaces human interaction. Nothing replaces that teacher in the classroom who can care for and nurture the students that are under her or his care. And I think South Carolina's push to return back to that probably went a long way in not having the test scores drop as they did in some other parts of the country.
That's really interesting. I remember when we came back to teach in situ at UofSC, and I think the dean at the time asked for people, would you be willing to teach, you know, face-to-face? I said, well, yeah, of course, because I think it's important. The appetite among students was enormous. They were hungry to get back into class. They did not like this remote learning. And I'm guessing that's true for K through 12, too.
I think it is. I've got kids of a certain age, and, you know, they, as much as I dislike the extent to which they would prefer to be glued to that cell phone from time to time, they still, at their core, want the relationship with people. They want the relationship with their teachers, and they want to be in school. It is an academic enterprise, but it's also a social and emotional maturity that's developed from in-person instruction, and that is certainly a cornerstone of one's personal and academic growth over time.
So I like this emphasis on South Carolina not being monolithic. As an historian, that appeals to my basic analytical instincts that things are complicated and textured. Could you talk a bit about the rural-urban divide in education, if there is one? I'm assuming there is one, but if there is, what does it look like within South Carolina?
Yeah, so let's talk about the idiosyncrasies where South Carolina doesn't fit the national narrative.
Yeah.
So, in particular, rural regions in South Carolina do not struggle with teacher departures, so pre-retirement teacher departures, in the same way that rural teachers nationally do. The shortages in South Carolina in rural regions are largely driven by the supply or the recruitment of beginning teachers.
Okay.
So it is different. It tells a different story. So it's not so much that your efforts in rural South Carolina need to focus on retention in the way that they do in many western rural areas, but it's really a recruitment issue. So how can we increase the pipeline of individuals coming into the profession? And I can say the College of Education has done that as well in an alternative preparation program that seeks to identify teachers that we call it a kind of a grow your own model, where you've got individuals who are in paraprofessional roles, or maybe they're in a different industry, but are at a place in life where they can't afford to not work.
Right.
And go back to school. And so how can we design pathways that have strong, robust coaching elements to it, where they can get the supports from the institution that we know that they need, but then we can help supply teachers to those areas of the state. So that's been a focus of ours. But that's one. In more urbanized areas of South Carolina, I would say it's more likely to be less of an issue of supply and more of an issue of teacher turnover rates pre-retirement. And so then your efforts there, yes, I think every district's seeking to recruit, but certainly if we did more in South Carolina, more in the places where there's high churn around keeping teachers in those classrooms, then the recruitment issues wouldn't be as pressing.
Gotcha.
Some number of years ago, the data were, and I think they're probably a little bit different now, but internationally, about 4% of the 4% of the teacher workforce in the highest achieving countries around the world would depart each year. In the U.S., we were sitting around 8%. And so there's a supply of educators to replace 4%, but not 8. And that's been a core issue in the United States writ large. So certainly the churn is an issue, but again, it's nuanced.
So I read with keen interest a piece you and your colleagues published in 2020 on precisely this issue, and I was quite taken aback by some of the conclusions of that piece, not least of which was the high proportion of international teachers in rural South Carolina.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a bit? And where are they coming from, and why? Is it to fill that hole?
It most certainly is. And that is the subject of much debate these days around international teachers. And so I'll try to talk on both sides of that just a little bit. So on the positive side of that, those programs help supply teachers into schools that otherwise are having a difficult time identifying personnel in order to be certified teachers. Most, if not all of them, come with some teaching experience in their home countries. And so they are experienced. I would maybe say not experienced in understanding South Carolina or necessarily a U.S.-based system, but they are coming with content knowledge and help supporting those schools. The negative side is it tends to be a short-term solution because they come for some fixed period of time, and then they're usually back out, and you've got the vacancy, and so then you're kind of repeating some of that. And the state's made quite an investment in that. There's a rural recruitment initiative that's funded through the legislature of about somewhere between $7 and $8 million annually.
And just to get people from abroad to come here.
Well,
advertising.
It's writ large. It's about $8 million to be able to do everything from that districts can apply to, that can do generalized recruitment strategies, sign-on bonuses, and recruit international teachers. And about 20% of that pool of funds has been used on international teachers.
Really?
So it's a significant amount of money that the state is spending on that. And if you trail that over years, there's quite an investment. And an investment that I think, if we made those same kinds of investments in South Carolinians to help fill those vacancies, to provide pathways into the profession for individuals who need preparation, could we achieve similar kinds of goals in addressing staffing needs while also promoting a little greater longevity?
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the discussions that are happening right now at a state level. But I think it's always good to kind of question your mechanisms along the way, and are we getting the right kind of ROI on this investment? That's one of the places where SC Teacher, it's a center that's housed inside the College of Education, has really been able to shine. You highlighted 2020 work. I would say the center's grown up since I handed it off to somebody else. It's gotten a 2.0, and it's really blossomed under its current sort of iteration. And I think that they're able to uncover a lot of those nuances now.
I'm just curious. Do you happen to know where most of these international teachers come from? Is it?
So there's some recent where they come from.
Yeah.
So I think a number of different places. I do know that a good number come from India, but there are other places around the globe that they come from as well.
And then I took a slightly deeper dive on this, and I was really curious to see the proportion of African American teachers and Hispanic teachers, the relatively high proportion of African American, or in terms of absolute numbers, but not in terms of representation. Is that right?
Right. So South Carolina does excel in supplying a more racially diverse workforce in some ways than other states. But you also have to juxtapose that with what does your population look like overall.
Right.
And so the last time I checked, I think we were about 38% African American, and so stands to reason that you'd like your educator workforce to somewhat resemble that as well. And I think that certainly there are mechanisms that I think have afforded opportunities for a more diverse workforce, and one of those is national data would suggest that alternative preparation programs are a good mechanism for diversifying the workforce. And there's a number of them in South Carolina.
Right.
And those we do have one alternative preparation program here at UofSC, but those tend to go a long way in helping diversify the workforce too.
So Southern Studies and Department of Spanish are doing a joint hire next year, and it is a marriage between the South and Hispanic-speaking people in the South and of their culture. I noticed that Hispanic teachers are relatively underrepresented, right? Given the significant demographic changes, and we see this at the university with Hispanic students coming through now, what are the real challenges there? Is that a recruitment challenge, just like everything else, or what are the mechanisms that are shaping this?
Yeah, so I'd say there's two things going on. One, there's a trailing impact of a growth in general population and then its matriculation into the university. So as these kids get older and they come into the university, we want to make sure that we're capturing a greater percentage of them into the educator workforce so that they're serving their communities well. The other side of it is how are we preparing all teachers to be able to support students who may be English language learners as they're entering schools. And so it's really reshaping how we think about educator preparation too, and some of the core components. And that's something that I know the college is working on right now, is thinking deeply about our preparation of future teachers and how they can support every community in South Carolina.
Yeah. All right. So you're talking about how colleges work and the function that they provide for your particular area, education. Let's switch gears just a bit, because you've just assumed the deanship of the McCausland College of Arts and Sciences, which is a big beast, right? I mean, it teaches 80% of students or something insane. Yeah. Could you tell us how you doing? You've only been on the job a few weeks. I'm a bit premature, perhaps, but
it's been absolutely a heartwarming experience for me. I appreciate the trust that the president and the provost have in me to lead the unit during the search process. And as I've gotten to know its people, it sounds a little cliche, but it's quite a leadership team inside the college. We've got a new faculty event coming up very soon, and a series of events where I'll get to know the individuals in the academic units a little more than I have to date. But suffice it to say, the college is in a great place. The naming gift last academic year, I think, is an enormous opportunity for growth, enormous opportunity for career readiness, workforce readiness, and to really place our stamp on a number of different things as a college. I'm a huge believer in the power of a liberal arts education. If we look at the stats around the number of jobs that are going to exist down the road that don't exist today, what does one need to be equipped with to be prepared for jobs that we can't even envision right now?
Yep.
Well, it's a good broad-based liberal arts education, and it can come out of a number of different traditions and different fields. But it's that analytic thinking, it's the ability to write, it's the ability to reason, it's the ability to communicate, it's to understand different philosophical and religious traditions that help undergird a good, strong society. So I'm delighted to be a steward of the place for however long that might be. And I like to think that coming from an education background, that gives me an advantage because I think when most people think about a college of education, they think about the K-12 space. But there's also a lot of work in post-secondary attainment, too, and pathways from K-12 on into post-secondary articulation agreements between different kinds of systems. So I think all of that is a part of what I hope I can bring to the table and how I can support the college in the year ahead.
Well, for what it's worth, I thought that your summary there of the worth of a liberal arts education was one of the nicest ones I've heard, because it's precisely it. It gives you a certain intellectual agility, the ability to analyze, the ability to sort of tap into multiple strengths, also recognize your own weaknesses. I remember as an undergraduate at the University of Southampton in the UK, we would be recruited by accountancy firms in our second year, like Arthur Andersen, and they didn't go to the accountancy school. They went to philosophy and history for precisely the reasons you just mentioned. I'm also hearing here, and you're using a term that isn't often deployed at least that much in the liberal arts, but workforce preparation, because that's coming very much from your experience as Dean in the College of Education, right? That's kind of where you are.
Well, there's also, we exist in a time where there's a good deal of pressure on higher education systems around its value proposition, and it's going to college is expensive regardless of where you go to school, and people want to know what kind of return on investment. I'm a parent, and as my kids finish college, I want to know that they're set up for a future, and that future, in part, is where they're going to be employed. And are they going to be able to be successful in that? Are they going to be able to identify their own passions, their own contributions to society in a way that supports them as well as whatever family they may have down the road? So I think it's an important consideration, and I think we need to be able to draw the lines between how our varied disciplines can help contribute to that workforce. But it's certainly not absent of a good, strong foundation across the liberal arts.
All right, so you're in this position for at least a year. Are you willing to share any hints about something you might be doing or might not be doing, or are you going to make any changes? I mean, you've got a lot of faculty and staff and students who are going to be listening to this.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying I don't intend to upset the apple cart.
Okay.
One,
right.
that doesn't seem wise to do in a short-term appointment. But I'm also, and I said this in my message to the college, I don't intend to be a seat warmer. I don't think that's healthy for the college. Things in the world move too fast, and if the college sits still for a year, then it's behind. And so we'll continue to make some advancements. I want to make investments in academic units, particularly along faculty lines where there's some greatest need and there's the greatest opportunities to engage in some growth. There's some internal structures that maybe wouldn't resonate with our external audience, but I know mean a great deal to the people on the inside, just with regards to post-award supports and so forth. So, we've got. I've had some initial conversations. It would be unfair for me to say that I've drawn conclusions in just a couple of weeks. Right. But the 30,000-foot view is that the college is in really good shape. It's trending in the right direction. It's got a great team in place. It's going to be a very attractive position during the dean search. And my commitment is to its people, and that's its students, its faculty, and its staff. and I want to ensure that they have a great place to study and a great place to work and a great place to do the things that they care about. And so my moves will be all directed towards those enterprises.
Well, I can't think of a nicer way to conclude this conversation than that. So on behalf of the McCausland College of Arts and Sciences, its faculty in particular, thank you for taking this job on. It's a big job. I'm very glad you're doing it. And equally important, thank you for the work you're doing to help educate South Carolina's citizens.
Well, thank you, Mark, for having me.
My pleasure. That was our take on the South. Let us know yours. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at UofSC South. Be sure to click and subscribe. Take on the South is produced by the Institute for Southern Studies and the McCausland College of Arts and Sciences at the University of South Carolina. Special thanks to Professor Dave Garner of the University of South Carolina School of Music for composing our soundtrack. Tune in next time for another Take on the South.